disappeared. I'm going to reconvene because we are now back into comments on the substantive original motion, and I have a request to make a comment from Councillors Filipaina and Darby at this stage, and Sayers. Thank you. Councillor Filipaina, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just wait for Councillor Sayers to turn his microphone off. Just to, it starts echoing, that's all. Yeah. I don't want my voice to echo because I feel sorry for you fellas. I think Councillor Fletcher said most of what I wanted to say, but I do, however, have some comments. And I remember after the 14th of December meeting around the consultation document going out for consultation, and I said a sentence which holds well today regarding the ports, and that sentence was 11 is a very good number. So saving the ports, knowing the impact it would have had with this lease, was something that we needed to do, and we got it done. So I thank those for that. I know that the unions thank us. I also know that the port does as well. I just want to give you a little bit of history, whakapapa to the ports and why the turnaround. If we go back to August of 21, there was an underlying profit of just over or just under 21 million. The dividend, because of COVID and everything else, was 3.7 million. September of 21, Jan Dawson was appointed the director and the chair. February 2022, Roger Gray joins the port as CEO. High performance, high engagement cultural model launched with the unions. March of 2022, Safety Forum led by Roger established port unions. PCBUs established a port-wide safety standard. June of 2022, automation ended, focus on delivery. July 2022, regaining our mana strategy launched with 3 years of financial targets. August 2022, underlying profit 27 million. Dividend 14.2 million. The work that Roger, the unions and the team at the port have done has to be acknowledged. And so I thank them for the work that they have done and also for the advocacy, because the lease of the port is now off the table and they need to be congratulated. The other issues, and with the Future Fund, my challenge, I think, to the people who have voted against it, and I'm going to move on after this because the sun is still going to shine tomorrow. And it is, yes, it will. And that is, I challenge you to tell me which other capital projects are going to be put in there, because the work hasn't been done. So now I'm going to move on. Because that vote's done, so be it. I'm all good with that. Chair, in regards to your proposal, and as I said, Councillor Fletcher covered off on most of what I wanted to say. But I do, however, and I attended the Māngere o Tāhuhu local board business meeting, and from the chair and the local board, Mr. Mayor, a comment back, and this is in regards to the 20 million, is that they and the Otara Papatoetoe local board feel that that is a slap in the face in regards to that. But I know that there has to be more work done on what will return back to the legacy councils. It has to be some work done, Mr. Mayor, because with the 22.3% of the shares when ACIL was wound up, that's how much we had. We've now got 11. So there needs to be some work. The majority of those sales the airport chairs were Auckland City. So there needs some work to be done in the Auckland City area. And I look forward to that piece of work as well. In regards to what Councillor Hills has said, I also support that, and that is around the targeted rates, Councillor Hills, because that was one of the key things that we ended up getting through over the line. So, Mr. Mayor, I look forward to working with you this term, and I know there's a favourite term you use, which is trade-offs, but I know for me that the trade-offs, as long as the area that I represent, but also as a regional council, I look forward to discussions moving forward at the next annual plan. My last comment is to the staff, to all the staff that have been involved in this long-term plan. I mihi to you all, because you have done a massive work to get us to this point. So I acknowledge you and say thank you. And to you, Mr. CEO, again, I know there's been some challenges this year, and I wish you all the best for the challenges moving forward. Ngā mihi kia koutou katoa. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Filipina. Councillor Darby, please.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'll limit myself to just a discussion around the port. The LTP 10-year budget's a big, long, wide one. It goes in many directions. I'll keep my focus. And Mayor, I just want to acknowledge the work that you and I have discussed for some time since you came into office. We first met on one of the studies that you chaired on the future of the port and the relocation of the port that are recommended. So we've got some history there, and we've followed that up. And Mayor, I think we've gone a long way. We've probably gone further in 18 months than anybody else has done so on the port. Working closely with others, of course, on that, and arriving at the Central Wharves Master Plan and other things which I'll go into. But look, at the outset, I did support the idea of exploring the lease option. And that was very contentious, and it was on a vote. Maybe that was my vote, maybe it was another's, but it was on one vote that we went for consultation. But I did say to you, Mayor, that I was not in the camp of being convinced. I needed to be convinced. But as we unpacked that, and one of the conditions I had was we needed more information. We needed contestable advice, and we sought the advice of economists and others. And we got some really solid information in. And we also tested the port company to do better. And we decided to sought that advice. We drove the port company harder. And what came out was we closed the gap significantly between the value of the lease and the value of what we termed enhanced status quo on a few steroids of extra payments. And $200 million over 10 years appeared in their profit part or their earnings pathway. And that made the difference. It was the drive, it was the blowtorch on all parties. And that ultimately decided whether we'd be proceeding with a lease or not. It was the evidence. And I think you and I, and now all of us, have added the evidence, and that has swayed us to run with port operations enhanced. So I do love Councillor Henderson's impassioned plea that we've sorted the port. I respectfully totally disagree, because sorting the port it is, and there's a long way to go. Sorting the port because we've got to understand that the question about Captain Cook Marsden and to some extent Queen's release. There's a lot of work and understanding to be done there. Good to see we've got $6 million in budget over the next 4 years, and we'll have that master plan, early side of it, in 18 to 20 months. The handback of the two wharves, though, I think we've got to get heads around that. It's not fully resolved. It's linked to Bledisloe North, and I've got a real caution on extending Bledisloe North. I'm just not excited as you, Councillor Henderson, but I understand where you're coming from. The need for extending Bledisloe Wharf into the Waitemata is not explained at this point. And I just want to remind people that the Port of Auckland board is yet to see a business case. There is no business case that the board itself has seen. So there is no governance direction to the port management to proceed in that direction, let alone inform us that that is a firm view. What I would like to see is some options analysis in the development of that business case, including no extension into the harbour, and using what's there even more efficiently. And then a second option of extending only to the revetment line or the basalt line. That's at low water springs. And then we can look, and I'm sure they will, at the 13-metre extension, which creates a 33-metre wide platform, some 327 metres long, 1.1 hectares. And then the quid pro quo is that 3 hectares of release. Now, there's a tension there. We don't have all the information. 8 years ago, I was part of a very large group, many thousands of people that protest under one particular banner, which I always remember fondly, a great banner. It was "Make Love, Not Wharf." And I think it'll pop up again if we do this badly. But I would say that we should not be repeating the folly of 8 years ago, and we should not be repeating the folly of the Queen's Wharf dolphin. How many millions did we sink and get and see disappear into that folly? And now we understand the conflict of crews. 68% of the postponements and cancellations are attributed to crews in the ferry basin. So let's not make those costly mistakes again. That's my plea. $70 million is the estimated capital spend at the moment, without a business case, for the Bledisloe extension. Let's proceed with the Central Wharves Master Plan. And the other thing I'm delighted to see in your mayoral proposal is not just the Central Wharves Master Plan, but looking at a long-range outlook of the waterfront, the port, and the Upper North Island supply chain, working with government and the regional councils of Bay of Plenty and Northern Regional. So cruise strategy as well is in there, and that is an important ingredient. And I think as we unpack that, we will realise how much low value there is in cruise tourism. And I'll go into that later on. But for now, I stay in the make love, not wharf camp. Thanks.
There's a sparkling display. Thank you very much. Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I, fairly brief comments, but I want to start off by thanking you, Your Worship, by recognising and addressing the equity issues in the rural sector of Auckland. What in your transport package you've included a significant boost to the Unsealed Road Improvement Program that's going to benefit the Gulf Islands, Franklin, Waitakere, as well as the Rodney wards. So on behalf of those rural residents and ratepayers across Auckland, thank you for recognising that and including that in your proposal. Also, on behalf of the Rodney Local Board, they're very grateful for the fairer funding model. They actually have significant improvements in terms of the ability now to develop and improve their community assets. Also the cap, the $50 cap for residents from the Rodney ward travelling to education centres, commuters to work and other people wanting to get into Auckland, that will make a huge difference in terms of savings to their households. And finally, can I just extend my, I guess, appreciation and your confidence to appoint me as your deputy of this committee to come up with a balanced 10-year budget. I also want to recognise all my colleagues around this table in terms of supporting that Unsealed Road Improvement Program. It's been a long time coming. And together with that gratitude, I want to thank Auckland Transport for their input in terms of getting that program fully funded. And also I want to acknowledge the Auckland Council, particularly the staff in the natural environment team, because there's not only improvements in terms of safety to people travelling on those roads, there's also dramatic improvements to water quality as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fuli, please.
Kia ora, thank you, Your Worship. I will start on a positive note and say that I do support most of what's in your proposal, especially the boosted transport package. I'm really happy to see that there and to see that there will be an enhancement in public transport services. I do come from an area where public transport is not well used and not that affordable, so I do hope to see that change, and also in terms of safety as well. Happy as well that you listened very carefully to everyone's feedback about the fairer funding model too. Especially for Māngere Otahu Local Board, they were looking at a reduction of around $5 million over the next 3 years. So thank you for listening there, and making sure that none of our local boards will suffer any cuts, and many of the local boards will actually get increases. All right, now for the negative part. It would have come as no surprise to you, of course, that I don't support a little a, lowercase a, to the establishment of the Auckland Future Fund. That'll come as no surprise to you. And of course, I've already said that I've tabled an amendment to be discussed at the governing body. And I just wanted to pick up on a few things that people have said about the Future Fund. And I'll talk more, of course, when we get to the governing body meeting. But the idea of not repeating mistakes that we've made in the past, and we've heard from others around the table about the ACIL and that failed investment fund that we had previously, and we'll talk probably more about that later, but it is about not repeating that same mistake. And I'm still uncomfortable about the protections that people have talked about, that staff have said will be around that fund, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well at the next meeting. But I just wanted to raise, you know, I'm Samoan, so I think in terms of proverbs. I think in metaphors and proverbs in my head, in my first language in Samoan, and then try to translate that into English around this table. And one of those proverbs that I grew up hearing and listening to was the proverb around the wise man who built his house upon the rocks. And that's sort of how I see this future fund. All of that uncertainty, all of those assumptions, highly uncertain figures in some of those things. And we have been privy to other information that, you know, in confidential meetings that we can't talk about here. But because of that, I feel like that proverb is playing out before my eyes. We have our house built upon a solid foundation on rocks, because we've had this asset, the strategic asset, for not 10 years, not 20, but much, much longer than that. And it has performed well for us, even through a pandemic and even through other global financial crises and such. And we're being asked to swap that for building our house upon more shaky ground, you know, on the sand. And so those are the sorts of things that I'm thinking and feeling about here. So I just want to leave it there, Your Worship. I can't support that part of your proposal, but the rest of your proposal I do support. Of course, I wish we could do more. Of course, I wish that we could. I was in the Do More, Get More camp, and we heard from our communities, although they were saying they didn't want to pay more on rates, when you listened more to the content of what they were saying, they did want us to deliver more services. They did want us to have a better public transport system and to have safer streets and things like that. So I think we've landed in a good place around those matters. Kia ora.
Thank you for that. Councillor Leone, please.
Kia ora. Today I want to commend the staff, the Mayor, the hundreds of hours that's been put into the mahi, our CE Mayor's office, for the budget that's been proposed. There's been a clear win with the ports no longer being on the table, so ngā mihi nui to the unions, and in particular Grant Williams, who's been leading some of these conversations with the Mayor's office, along with a number of our councillors. Transport, I acknowledge the great work by Councillor Henderson for advocating the $50 cap on weekly travel. Kia ora. We've done well in terms of progressing things forward with transport, but I also want to note my concern on some of the ongoing additional funds that are required for programs like CRL in particular, where there's been overspends. And I think some of these overspends do actually have a significant impact on our other work programs that we are wanting to achieve, and do actually result in things like us having to sell our significant assets. Fairer funding. Awesome, ngā mihi to Councillor Ferry. and the local board fairer funding is another win for our city and for particularly the Faux ward. Māori Outcomes, I commend the Mayor on maintaining the funds for Māori Outcomes. As chair of the Māori Outcomes political working group, I know that we have a lot of mahi to do. There are hundreds and thousands of Māori living in Tamaki Makaurau, and I believe this council needs to do better in terms of reaching more Māori with the funds that we have and the resources we have here at council. I look forward to our Māori Outcomes political working hui tomorrow, meeting in these chambers where we will have the opportunity to hold our directives to account on meeting the needs for Māori. In terms of the shares, as I've mentioned or have voted otherwise, I will not be supporting the sale of the airport shares today, and that is because I believe there are still other assets we can look at selling or areas we can make savings on. Sweating our assets is a term that comes to mind that don't bring in revenue. Last year we had the same discussion, and unfortunately through our 100 plus hours of workshops we could only come up with our two biggest assets for this decision regarding the ports and the airport shares. But I go back to the last sale of the shares too. I put an amendment up previously for mana whenua to have the first opportunity to buy shares, obviously due to their own resources, but we know that this didn't happen. We talked about a cap on our debt. That hasn't happened, and the reality is we know that there will always be emerging or emergency issues in our city. This will continue, and we will need to continue filling that gap. My concern is the same with these shares. We have plenty of other assets that can be sold over time, rather than looking at one of our most significant assets being sold today. There are areas where we can make savings in the future, the continuous overspend on CRL, and if we continue to spend at that rate, we will continue to maintain budget issues going forward. I actually feel we're not addressing the core issues, which is some of the continuous overspend. What are we going to do in the next rainy day once the proceeds from the future fund is sold and we've maxed out all of our debt? It would not be prudent of us to sell our largest asset without foolproof protection in place. Finally, I want to acknowledge our families who are struggling to put food on the table in Tamaki Makaurau. We've been through years of turmoil, and mihi to all our whānau and the need for us as the council to be that one event for whānau, that one beautiful park and green space that they look forward to in terms of entertaining their tamariki, the pools and everything else that we have. While I'm sad about the sale of the shares, on balance, I'm happy about what this budget achieves for our families in Tamaki Makaurau going forward. Mauri ora.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Turner, please.
Thank you very much, everyone. In my short 18 months here, this has been a productive day, and I've learned a lot. I came to the meeting flopping around like a dying snapper, as usual. I know where I stand now, and I do want us to remember that we really have to focus down on the ground. That's where there's a lot of money we have to focus on. I'll be supporting Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Can't fault that thinking. Okay, we've now reached a situation of being able to talk to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to speak in support of your mayoral proposal and the long-term plan. Mayor, again, you have listened, for this refreshed proposal has changed in many areas, showing again your willingness to compromise, to listen to both Aucklanders and your councillors, and in doing so, delivering some long-lasting legacy changes to Auckland. Look, there is much I could say, but time, as you know, is never our friend on this. So I'm just going to cover a few issues, that which I'm really pleased to see, that which I think we need to keep an eye on, and issues still causing me some concern. I'm very supportive of the Auckland Future Fund. In simple terms, what you have done here is ensure the long-term intergenerational income from our $1.3 billion tied up in airport shares and putting them in a new structure which is more secure, less risky, and which delivers a higher rate of return for future generations of Aucklanders. And you can't get much more rock solid than that. It's never been done in Auckland before, although some have tried. So well done. Although I would like to give a bit of a shout out to my friend in New Plymouth, Mayor Holden, who led the way with this kind of proposal. Although don't tell him I said so, I think we've done it better. On the ports, we have ended up with a version of enhanced status quo from the original mayoral proposal last year. Clearly, Aucklanders were not comfortable with aspects of the port lease proposal, and our ports company has responded to the challenge, although it hasn't escaped me that it was only the threat of change that we reached a better place. And that's better to the tune of almost $250 million more from our ports, 244 million to be exact, over their original 10-year profit projection. But let's not complain, let's just take the win when we get it. North Harbour Stadium. This was a contentious proposal from the get-go. The people of the North Shore are passionate about their stadium, always have been, and I want to support them work towards a solution that ensures it is fit for purpose for generations to come. I want to thank them for coming to me with a solution. And I want to truly thank you, Mayor, and your staff for meeting recently with the community members to broker that solution. I wholeheartedly support the resolutions on this issue. It means the ultimate end result will be community-led, by the shore, for the shore. So over to you, shore rights, prove you can make it work. Transport is obviously a massive part of any council budget, and I broadly agree where we have landed. The additional 600 million over 10 years in the LTP means we can continue to deliver important roading and, of course, public transport services. I also want to mention the Local Board Transport Capital Fund. It was raised with me by many local boards as a really integral part of what they do. Our LTP sets the envelope for the RLTP, and the RLTP has budgeted for the Transport Capital Fund to be back at $20 million a year, or 62.8 over 3 years. That's hugely welcome, and I'm sure local boards and their communities will be strongly in support of this through that consultation, because sometimes it's those little things that really count. But I'm still concerned about a couple of issues. First, we need to keep the pressure on to get the most out of our buses and our public transport with continued reviews of services that are underutilised. The layman calls them ghost buses. And secondly, for all the excellent work done by Auckland Transport and its staff, the governance relationship in law and in practice still needs work. Mayor, I've given you some ideas on that, and I welcome your ongoing work with government to look at this. I'm supportive of the capital safety investment to protect our bus drivers. I'm not happy we have to do it, but I do want to keep our bus drivers safe. In talking about safety, I'm very pleased to see the initiatives in the mayoral proposal to increase funding, not just in the city centre, but around the region. I do think, however, we need to have an additional focus in the upcoming years on safety in a broader sense, including the transport system. So I'd welcome additional focus from this council dedicated to this issue. When I visited all the local boards earlier in the year, a big topic of conversation with them was the fairer funding proposal. I have to say, in the original version, I didn't see it as being fairer at all. And I didn't understand why boards such as Henderson Massey, Otara Papatoe, Mangere o Tahuhu could lose funding of up to, say, $5 million. I do think where you've got with the Political Working Party and yourself, Mayor, not to do any reallocation is a positive move. However, I do want to indicate that I don't think the issue of how council funds its local boards completely is fully resolved. On rates, the rates rise for year one is lower than originally proposed and much lower than many councils in New Zealand. I believe that will be welcomed by many who are struggling financially. I also am very pleased about the water care outcome, although that will give them more debt capacity and us more debt capacity. I do know that we still have to be fiscally conservative to keep within our AA credit rating. That is a non-negotiable, Mr. Chief Executive, from my perspective. And finally, Your Worship, I want to thank your staff and our staff for working on this. I know it's taken hours of work. Councillors, there is much to do, but I'm confident that this long-term plan is yet another step on the way to delivering an Auckland that's a thriving, beautiful place to live. Again, thank you, Your Worship. You've brought to the table a new way of doing things which will leave a positive, lasting legacy. So well done. I'm supporting all recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I didn't realise the new way of doing this would be require so many hours of meetings, but there we are. Thank you, Tam, for organising all those. I'm at the stage now where I'm going to put the substantive motion. I don't know if anyone wants to have a, whatever you call those votes of yours.
What, one of my votes? No, it's fine. I've already noted with Sandra which ones I opposed, which is 90% of it, so thank you.
Okay, I'll put it in as a verbal vote. If you've got particular items that you wish to have recorded. Eh? Are you calling for a division? Okay, right. We're going to be divided. I'm calling upon Ms Tomovsky to organise a division, please. Thank you very much.
Councillors, Hupura members, you're voting on item 9, the mayoral proposal, the substantive motion. Councillor Baker,
For.
Can we call out things I disagree with?
Councillor Bartley,
I'm voting for, but I want my vote recorded against A2, please.
A2.
Yeah, you're allowed to do that, so that's fine if you want.
Can I do that?
No, you can do that. I'm just letting others following you to know that that's okay. Right, well done, A2. That's milk, isn't it?
Councillor Dalton? For. Councillor Darby?
For.
Councillor Ferry? For. Councillor Filipina?
For and Sandra Scott. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher?
For.
Councillor Foley?
Similar to Councillor Bartley, I'm voting for, but against lowercase a2. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson?
For.
Councillor Hills?
Yes, thank you.
Member Kake?
For.
Councillor Lee? No. Councillor Leone?
For but against A2.
Councillor Newman?
Yes.
Councillor Sayers?
For.
Deputy Mayor Simpson? Councillor Stewart? Chair Taipere?
For.
Councillor Turner?
For.
Councillor Walker?
For but against part of 1C, part of 2, and a comment on 3, 9 it looks like, or 3:13. Yeah. I'll put that in one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Woodson?
For, and I record a vote against 1. We sent through. I'll send it through to you.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson? Mayor Brown?
For.
It's 22 to 1. And it's carried.